How the devil are you doing this fine day? I hope you're all fit and well, and happy hump day to each and every one of you. You never know when inspiration is going to strike. As I planned, I did sneak off yesterday for quite possibly my final fishing trip of the year. I'm a fair weather angler, you understand, much to my late father's disappointment. I actually chose to wear my dad's old fishing hat, which looks like that, for no other reason than it was right there with my fishing tackle. But it set me thinking. My dad had been a fisherman his entire life. He would fish once, twice, sometimes even three times a week. Unfortunately, towards the end of his life, he suffered from COPD, which restricted his breathing. That meant he couldn't take long walks to his favourite fishing spots. And as if that wasn't bad enough, his eyesight also started to deteriorate, so he could no longer see to tie his hooks or see his float. And it occurred to me yesterday that he probably never knew that his last fishing trip was, in fact, his last fishing trip, which I guess is for the best. But it did set me thinking about today's question of the day, and we'll get to that in just a second. Before that, very quickly, did you see the news about the car park collapse at Luton Airport? I've spent the morning reading news reports and social media comments about it, and a number of them mentioned electric cars and EV chargers potentially playing a role in the fire that led to the partial collapse. You will recall that I spoke about this very subject just yesterday when I showed you the Leica building movement monitoring system. I sincerely hope that, much as Mike Keogh suggested earlier this year, this is the time that some meaningful action is taken to inspect the nation's car parks, to repair those that can be repaired and demolish those that are no longer fit for purpose. If you'd like to watch that video that I recorded with Mike Keogh back in February, you can do so. I have the means at my disposal. I just need to press that button. And there you are, car park demolition. Have a look in the chat. While I'm speaking about the chat, I'm going to say a very quick good morning to Andy Dovell, who's just crept in under the wire while I wasn't paying attention. I think I've said automatic hellos to everybody else, apart from Jim Turner. Morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed. Let's have a look. We were warned about the car park problem. Yes, we most certainly were. Let's have a look. No way. No, not seen. Just hope no one was injured. I understand that some airport staff were actually taken to hospital. No clue as yet on their condition or how they were involved. But I know Andy Dalvell. I spoke to him on LinkedIn this morning. And he actually had some friends who were working. I don't know if they're firefighters or demolition people, but they were actually there. And they literally, because of the intensity of the fire, they just literally had to stand back and watch as the car park basically pancaked itself. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that in the not too distant future. Let's say a very quick good morning to Glenn Johnston, who's just arrived as well. Now, you can, of course, have your say, much as you're already doing, over in the chat. Please feel free to do that. But if you'd like to lend your voice to the show, you can also leave us a voicemail, which we may or may not use in a future episode. And if you'd like to do that, I have a button for that as well. If I can remember which one it is. It's the one that looks like a telephone. It's that one. Leave us a voicemail message and we'll possibly feature it on the show. Now, without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro, not the outro, post the question of the day and get this show on the road. And I'm going to say very good morning to Andy Dyson. Morning, Demolishers. Good morning to you as well, Andy. Is that a term? It is now. Right, okay, let's get on with the show with the intro. Let's throw straight over to Andy Darvell for the latest on all things car park collapses. It was a Land Rover that caught fire. All my airport police and were putting it out when the fuel tank ruptured and it took over. My mates were on the fire, 6 firefighters and 1 airport worker taken to hospital for smoke inhalation. My mates are retained firefighters in Markyate, Hertfordshire. That's the station I used to work from. So now you know. But I have seen lots of mentions of electric vehicles and electric chargers. I know somebody was talking about electric batteries popping all over the place. I don't know if there's any truth in that. Not that that really matters. A fire's a fire is a fire. But yeah, not good. And as I said, maybe that will be the catalyst that actually makes the UK government, whichever one we have at the given time, look at the situation with our car parks, because it's not good. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen, just seen on the news, the government waste 1.25 billion on cancelled HS2 section. No great surprise. No great surprise. And I'm still smarting about it. But it is Wednesday, the 11th of October. Welcome to the Field of Dreams. That is the Breakfast Show. In today's show, how a Kinshofer Knox tilt rotator is helping uncover the past. I think you'll like that one. Dynaset magnet controls attract interest. Never mind. We hear what American operators make of the Volvo electric equipment range. How Caterpillar is helping owners keep track of their attachments, plus wall demolition down in New Zealand arrive in style. But first, let us peer back through the mist of time to see what was happening on this day in history. And on this day in 1521, I remember it well, Pope Leo declared King Henry VIII Defender of the Faith. Don't remember that turning out particularly well. In 1969, blues musician Muddy Waters was involved in a car crash that killed 3 people. In 1975, Saturday Night Live premiered on NBC with the late, great George Carlin as host. In 1981, an unknown singer and guitarist opened for the Rolling Stones at the Los Angeles Coliseum. That singer was one Prince Rogers Nelson, better known to the world simply as Prince. And in 2001, the Polaroid company filed for federal bankruptcy. Didn't move with the times, which is something we were talking about yesterday, I think. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me very quickly remind you of our question of the day. And I know some of you have already started to answer it. Yeah, if today was your last ever day at work, just imagine, what would you do differently? Would you tell your boss what you thought of him or her? Would you pass on some insight or wisdom to a younger person? Or would you just knock off early and head for the pub? Personally, I'd like to think that my last ever day at work, I'd end with a terrific article to entertain and enthrall that would make everyone say, he was really good right to the very end. Some chance. But what about you? Let us have your thoughts in the chat, and we'll come back to that at the end of the show. But we've got some gear to look at. Let's roll this. Right, before we go any further, I'm going to go back to Andy Darvell, who is our news reporter of the day, apparently. 25 fire trucks, including the airport trucks, were on it. It was the biggest fire in the area since Buncefield Fuel Depot went up. I remember that one very well. My mates were on that too. Unfortunately, I hadn't started as a firefighter at that point, so I missed that big job too. Just on... let's have a very quick look at this. Batshit crazy. That was what you would do on your last day, is it? Grab ass for a bit and leave early. I think you'd probably be asked to leave early if that were the case. Yet Buncefield, my son was used to play like junior league football. I think he was only about 11 years old at the time. And I was driving him to his football match on a Sunday morning, and in the distance we could see there was like a line of black across the sky, which was, bearing in mind we're in Surrey and that was over in effectively Hemel Hempstead. No idea what it was. It was only when I got back in the car after his football match, heard the radio, heard about Buncefield, and all became clear. Now, you will recall that we recently made a trip, a pilgrimage, if you will, to the home of Augertalk to see the new Kinshofer Knox TRO45 tilt rotator in action. Well, while we were there, we met an operator who uses his Knox tilty to quite literally uncover the past.
My name's Nick Roberts, and I work for Lattenbury Services, and I run a JCB 140X with a TR19 and a gripper cassette on it. The digger side, it wasn't long before I knew that there was a place for a tilt rotator. We knew a lot of the work's quite intricate, archaeology and ponds and stuff like that. Stuff where you're needing to cut angles, and I found spending a lot of time putting material under each track to try and get your levels. You can soon lose quite a lot of time during a day, so that's when I approached the boss about getting a tilt rotator. I approached Chris with the idea of it, and he said, look, go out, see what you can find, see what you think. So yeah, I spent quite a long time phoning up, getting an idea of everything about them. And then when we come across the Knox, the idea of not having any cylinders out the side was really appealing, because quite a lot of the time we get into some pretty tight spots when we're ditching and doing ponds. You're in amongst trees and branches and brash. So yeah, there was always a worry of catching a ram or a pipe whilst you're doing that. So coming across one of these seemed ideal at the time. Made some phone calls, super helpful, and yeah, we're here today. So you start off doing your evaluation trenches. Again, that's quite delicate. Strip the topsoil and get down to subsoil, and then it's generally taking real small skims until they get to their level. If you come across a certain amount of features, they'll then assess whether they want to strip the whole site, and then we come back in, and then it's you're stripping sites, but then you can be getting involved with things like burial mounds as well, which again, it's basically a dome, so having the ability to just maneuver yourself without tracking about and jacking your tracks up is such a time saver. It's time, productivity, and the overall job you can leave, and the customer satisfaction as well, because there's not a site I've been on where the customer hasn't been sort of blown away by what you can achieve in such little time. Most days I'm pretty sure you can shave a couple of hours off a day, or certainly an hour off a day, but they soon add up, don't they? So the other aspect of it was we did quite a lot of ground investigation, where they require you to dig up to depths of sort of 4.5 meters, but they don't want it stepped because they want to keep ground impact as low as possible, so dig out as least amount of dirt as possible. So this, out of everything on the market, we could go in with the narrowest bucket and get down to that depth without ripping off rams. Quite often we get onto a farmer's nicely drilled field and he doesn't want us spragging around everywhere on it, so from this point I can dig it, stay in one spot for the backfill, and you're just in and out on one track line, in and out. Every time I get back on another digger for a day or so, then yeah, it's sorely missed not having a tilt rotator.
Yeah, good interview. Thoroughly enjoyed a chat with Nick there. And now this does seem like the perfect opportunity to remind you that those fine folks at Auger Talk, we're throwing open their doors for a couple of open days later this month down in Cheltenham. I do have some details here somewhere. There you go. Those open days are taking place on Tuesday the 24th and Friday the 27th of October, so just a couple of weeks away. If you'd like to be part of that, drop a line to sales@augertalk.com. Just an RSVP and let them know you're coming so they can make way for you. And I would recommend it. It's well worth it. Now, let me see. I do want to go back to the chat. Do this one first. Knox looks a great product, and the other tilt rotators. Surely it's a stronger unit without the rams on the side and less to hit and damage. That is what they would have you believe, and I haven't seen it in action. I'm inclined to agree with them. Now, there was something else I wanted to throw up on the screen. Can't find it. Oh, there we are. Andy Darvell says, Dan Cullen, was that button demolition? Now, what was button demolition? There he is, Andy Darvell. I worked on Buntsfield for 3 months. If I remember rightly, actually, the post-blast demolition was actually done by J. Bryan Victoria, because they have oil and refinery experience. Then obviously now JBV Demolition up in the Wirral or thereabouts. Run by Mark Bryan, smashing fella, one of my favourites. Now let me do one of these.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, I had a very nice surprise yesterday afternoon. Somebody dropped me a £70 tip. 70 quid. Yeah, I mean, my wife's already spent it, obviously, but yeah, 70 quid. Really, really welcome. And just purely somebody saying, love what you do. Here's a big old tip. If anybody else would like to join them, don't expect 70 quid, but I was really quite pleased. Now, there is no question that attachments are getting smarter by the day. They can be tracked and traced electronically. They can be matched to a specific operator, machine, or application. And as you're about to see, they can even be monitored and managed by a dedicated mobile app. Yeah, just going to throw back very quickly to the chat. Added Arvel, no, Dan Cullen's on for a groundworks firm doing the pipe work after the demolition was done. As I say, that was done by J. Brown Victoria. Dan also commented on my my big tip. Listen, nobody was more surprised than me, and nobody was more pleased than me, I have to say. And there's Dan saying, wow, that looks the bollocks. There's an app too. Yeah, I can't help thinking it'd be quite good to actually get hold of the app while your mate was operating and turn everything down to eco mode to slow them right down, just to see if they noticed. That's just me. We're going to be sticking with all things related to smart attachments right after this. It's not unusual for equipment owners and operators to have 2, 3, 4, or even more attachments for a single machine. Keeping track of those valuable attachments is therefore vital. Thankfully, Caterpillar have thought of that and now offer an electronic attachment locator. And this is how it works. boffins at Caterpillar really do think of everything, don't they?
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Couple of comments from Dan Cullen to go back over. Going back to the Dynaset. No, that's not the one. This is the one. I wonder what the magnet is like, full power, and what can it lift? A lot. I've certainly seen them lifting some big lumps of steel, but like swarf and that kind of thing. Lots and lots of bits of that. Dan Cullen says again, seen these Bluetooth gadgets. Andy Kane had these 6 years ago on his attachments. And stand by your beds, everybody. One of our favourite sons, or Wales' favourite sons, is here. Ed Butler. Good morning, Mark. Good morning. Good morning to you, Ed Butler. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Hope you're fit and well. Give our regards to Steve. Haven't spoken to him for a little while. Hope he's fit and well as well. Now, last week, the Utility Expo conference and exhibition rolled into Kentucky to show off the very latest in utility equipment and tech. One of the key attractions of the show was the stand of Volvo construction equipment, where the company was allowing operators the chance to get the feel for its electric equipment, including the Volvo EC230, the 20-ton electric excavator. And this is what they thought.
How you doing, everyone?
Awesome. So we know that Volvo has the most commercially available electric machines in the industry.
Yeah.
Which means people have a lot of questions, but we do like to bring them to trade shows like Utility Expo here, so people have the chance to operate them themselves. Actually, are you ready to go operate the EC230?
Yeah, I actually want to run it. You know, I saw it at Con Expo, but now that it's here and it's in a setting where we can operate it, I definitely want to give it a go.
Awesome. Well, let's head on over.
Let's do it.
Compare it.
Yeah.
So it's so quiet, nothing is running right now. The moment I move the safety car up, here now. Yes. Okay. Then you have the same dial on the right, like on the diesel excavator. You have F1, G1, 2, and H1. So you select whatever mode you want.
So you just had a chance to operate the EC230. What'd you think?
It's pretty impressive, honestly. You know, obviously it's not for every application, but if your specific application requires an electric machine, that's pretty impressive. You know, I have a 220 that's real similar in size. This one actually felt like it was a little quicker, and it cycled quicker. It has just as much power. It's pretty impressive, I must say.
Awesome feedback. We actually also interviewed attendees for themselves who operated the EC230 yesterday and today, so let's check out what they had to say.
Yeah.
You just got off a 23-ton all-electric machine. What was your impression of that?
Well, it's always cool to run new equipment, so that's fun. You know, it's always fun to know what's coming out. That's why we're here, is to see what new technologies are emerging and how that affects, you know, the workplace. And so, yeah, I liked it. It's a good machine. I like the fact that it's quiet. It doesn't seem to lose anything as far as power. You know, as an electric utility, we have a vested interest in electric. I think a lot of folks are just, you know, it's something new, and so everybody has a little resistance to that, but yeah, it's they should at least try it.
So you just got off the battery electric 23-ton excavator. What was your impression of the electric excavator?
The controls were really smooth. It was a quiet machine. I'm a little rusty myself as an operator, but I thought that it was pretty smooth. Because of the noise levels, it could allow us to work longer times, different time frames, you know, early in the morning or late in the evening.
Okay, I just saw you kind of eyeballing this machine. What are your initial thoughts on it right now?
We was walking in here and I seen her said it's total electric, and I was like, I gotta check that out. So I never ran a piece of equipment like that, just total electric. It's always
What do you think it's gonna be like compared to a diesel?
My first thoughts was like, you know, there's no way it's gonna have the same power, same mobility and all that, but don't know till I try. So.
All right, give me your initial thoughts.
Well, it handled just like any other track I've operated. I was really surprised. For what I could tell with that, I mean, like I said, the controls are really smooth. I mean, it was just easy. You know, not too touchy, not too light. Just kind of perfect the way the controls set up. So I mean, I can see it digging in some pretty good dirt, to be honest with you. So
you've never been on an electric?
No, sir.
All right, tell me your
well, the scooters. What's the little electric scooters? You're right. You know what I'm talking about? The
I do know what you're talking about.
little
Like
scooter.
what do you think about them?
Battery costs would probably be high. There ain't no telling what a battery'd be for this big, you know, what is that, 60, 70,000 pound track? Oh, you know.
All right, we'll find out. All right, you operated it now, so what are your thoughts on it?
It's very, very quiet. It is nice. You could, you know, if you need to talk on the phone or something, you could hear in there. If somebody needs to talk to you outside the cab, you know, you could hear them versus an engine revving up and revving it down. Used to running old equipment with earplugs in or earmuffs on, and it's very, very quiet.
All right, so we don't just have EC230 electric here, we also have our compact electric machines. And Juan, you actually bought an L25 electric at Con Expo.
I did.
So can you tell us what you're working on projects with it and how it's going?
You know, we actually used it all summer long. Alexa, we took it on the road with us, and that actually gave us a lot of flexibility to be able to do a little more as far as the repairs that we do on the show. Awesome. But, you know, outside of the show, I still use it in my shop.
Yeah.
We actually have a snow removal contract with one of the local hospitals where we're going to stage that machine in the emergency room area to be able to clear the parking lot and everything else. So it's, you know, for the application, obviously it's not going to be every application that you're going to use this machine for, but certain applications it works amazing. You know, one being, like I said, the shop, and that's our go-to tool at the shop. If we got to move pallets, if we got to lift something in the shop, that's the machine we use.
And what are your guys saying about it who are operating, about the comfort and...
As far as the visibility, no sound, obviously, which is a huge plus when you're working in the shop. There's guys everywhere. You know, you want to make sure you can hear what's going on around you, and the feedback is just amazing. The guys absolutely love it. You know, that's the go-to machine now at the shop. We got a dozen machines, and that's always the one that gets used.
Awesome. And we also asked attendees as well who operated the compact electric machines what they thought. So let's take a look and see what they thought of the machines.
You just tried out the all-electric L25 from Volvo. What was your impression?
Very impressed. Very smooth machine, nice and quiet, and very reactive. The controllers I find very easy to operate and maneuver. We have a couple wheel loaders we do for snow removal around the property, loading trucks, loading sand, moving stuff with forklifts on it. Operating time is 3 or 4 hours that we would use it for, so I think it would be a perfect machine for us.
What's your guys' typical job? What do you normally see at work?
The utilities is our bread and butter. That's what we do day in, day out. Setting poles and running lines, running underground lines, now setting fiber. So like I said, we're starting to get involved in a lot more than just utilities. Smooth operating experience, quiet operating experience. You don't have the vibrating, you don't have the diesel fumes, you don't have the additional heat coming off of the machine. Having a machine like this, like I said, it could definitely help out. And also, you know, being good stewards of our money, that's very important to us as well as good environmental stewards. Most of our fiber and underground crews have excavators, and so something like this would be ideal because having this out at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, operating it versus, you know, something that's running a big diesel engine, I mean, that would be a no-brainer right there.
Can you tell me about this machine? Just give me your reaction.
Well, the Volvo is pretty simple to run. It's my first time on one today, but it ran very smooth and I was impressed with it. The controls were really on point. I mean, the reaction time with the stick movement was perfect. It is pretty cool to see that electric's gone that far, you know. It's like, I mean, digging holes in the ground, trenches, picking up steel plates and putting them over the road. There's all kinds of, a million different uses we use for them a day, and I could do it all with that.
You operate at different times of day.
We have been kicked off sites because it was too loud. Our equipment was too loud. It was late at night, so the electric would have been useful then. I mean, that would be a difference maker on the job site for sure.
All right, so before we leave, Juan, I gotta ask, any secrets you can share about mine rescue?
Well, the one I can The secret that I can tell you, Alexa, is that we're actually, we just finished filming. So we got a whole new season coming out. It's going to be a little delayed, obviously, because editing and everything else.
Right.
But come next year, we got a whole new season coming out that's going to be action-packed, and it's going to be a lot of new repairs that we haven't done before.
Okay.
So Freddie and I were back at it. Hopefully people watch.
Awesome. Thank you, Juan, for joining us today.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you guys for tuning in. Tune back in at 3 o'clock later today to see our next segment.
Thanks.
Yeah, really wish I'd been there. I've never been to Kentucky, so that would have been cool. Been eating their chicken for long enough, and I certainly used to enjoy their bourbon as well. But far more importantly, I'd love to have taken that EC230 for a spin one of these days. Now, while we're talking all things electric, please don't forget, on Wednesday next week, that is 1 week from today, we will be hosting an evening show dedicated to all things electric. In fact, I think I even have a slide for it. There you go. Who's that handsome devil there? Electric Earth Moving Equipment, 7 p.m, Wednesday, the 18th of October. Join us if you can. We're going to have contributions from the likes of Volvo, JCB, Caterpillar, Shantui, I think XCMG, I think Bobcat are in there, and a whole host of other people as well. That is an evening show, 7 p.m, Wednesday, the 18th of October. Be there or be square, as they say.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
I'm going to go over to Chris Ford in the chat. Says, I'm all for electric so long as I don't have to pay for it. How would you go on when, if you were on hire and the normal trick of your off hire? The normal trick of your off hire tonight at 3:30 in the afternoon, are you going to get access to a charger? Or if not, will you have the charge to load it? Just saying. Still many obstacles to overcome. I would recommend, if you do have question marks over and anything to do with electric equipment, go and have a look at the YouTube channel of Volvo. They've obviously come up, or they've come up against some of that criticism themselves, and they've actually produced a whole bunch of videos, including how to charge, when to charge, what sort of charge it takes, and everything else. But they are really starting to address some of that. So if you do have any questions about electric equipment in general, but Volvo more specifically, go and have a look at the Volvo Construction Equipment YouTube channel. Dan Cohen says, oh my God, stop, Andy. Yes, I want that too. Be better if she came with it as a package. Not sure. I want the Volvo. I want the Volvo hat that woman has on. Bloody lovely. Now, speaking of Volvo hats, should we give this one away tomorrow? Bit of a limited edition. This was hauled back from Germany when I went to the motor racing. As you can see, it's dual branded. You can see, I don't know if you can see actually, it's got a bit of an Encon thing going on there because Encon are part of the team. The CE dealer team, Volvo electric rallycross team. We'll give that away tomorrow. If anybody would like to be up for winning that, then please. Andy Darvell, hardly being misogynistic at all, says, yeah, she wasn't half bad, especially if she was wearing just the hat. Yeah, I think you guys need to go and take a long, cool shower or something. Just saying the hat to Dan, no one stands a chance when it's a hat to win. You could well be right. Now, have I done, I think it doesn't matter. I'll do it anyway.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
There are two ways to arrive on site with your equipment. You can arrive like a ragtag army division with bits of equipment here and bits of equipment there, and all of it carried on a battered old low loader. Or you can arrive in style. Ward Demolition from New Zealand chose the latter option.
Hi, my name is Shane. I work for Wood Demolition. I'm one of the heavy haulage drivers. Here we have behind me is the Kenworth T9909 2020 model. Beautiful truck to drive. 80-speed Road Ranger, Cummins motor inside it. This is the pride and joy of Wall Demolition. This gets all our heavy machinery around. We're down here at Te Kaupara at our quarry. When we turned up this morning, we had to piggyback our dolly, which was on the back of our trailer, on the top of our trailer, because we couldn't travel between 7 and 9, so we had to bring it down to the quarry and unload it down here, hook it back up to the trailer, all ready to load our machine on so we can be ready to move out here at 9 o'clock. Before we loaded our digger up, we actually took measurement on the width of the machine. We actually have to open up our trailer as well as the dolly. It doesn't necessarily have to be the tracks, it can be the width of the machine. Top of the digger you see like a wing, brings us out to 3.5 wide. It gives me that stability when I'm going around corners. I'll tell you what, awesome company to work for. I wouldn't work for anyone else, so no, I love the job and that's why I'm still here. Cool, have a good day.
I know it's probably overkill. I know it would be expensive, and I realise it wouldn't get down half the streets that it would need to get down here in the UK. But you'd really look like you meant business if you pitched up in that, wouldn't you? Absolutely fantastic. Now, I do need to very quickly throw over to the chat because we have a very special guest in our midst. None other than Kinsoffer. Kinsoffer, the manufacturer, I'm guessing that's probably Julia, sat behind the controls of, where is she? On Facebook, by the looks of it. Yeah, good morning to Kinsoffer and to the entire Kinsoffer team. Hope you're having a fantastic day. We did feature the guy doing the archaeology with the Knox tilt rotator earlier in the show, and people love it. If you've got any questions, people, now is the perfect time. If you've got any questions about anything Kinsoffer related, Knox or anything else, now's the perfect time because they are here, and I can confirm it is in fact Julia. It's always Julia. So if you've got any questions, anything to do with Kinsoffer, please ask away because you can get it straight from the source. Now, let's get grumpy for a second, shall we? My gripe of today, very short, sweet, and to the point. I said that I went fishing yesterday. There wasn't a great deal of planning involved, so Fred and I stopped at a nearby co-op store to pick up a sandwich and a drink. The fishing was slow. One fish each in about 5 hours, but sitting in the October sunshine made it worthwhile, really. Anyway, at the end of our session, we both packed away our gear, collected up our empty drink bottles and our sandwich wrappers, dropped them back into the carrier bag in which they came, and walked about 10 yards to the bin kindly provided on the canal footpath. The bin was largely empty, and yet there was rubbish all around it. It was as if people were convinced that bin adjacent was good enough. It would have taken them less than a second to actually drop their waste into the bin. But no, apparently that was too much like hard work. So they just threw it on the ground near the bin. As a result, to one side of me was this picturesque and tranquil scene of swans swimming elegantly on perfectly still water, and on the other side was a small and poorly managed landfill. I really, really hate people sometimes. Anyway, that's my gripe of the day. I'd love to hear yours. What is it that grinds your gears, gets your goat, and generally butters your parsnips? Let us know. The daily gripe therapy session will return very, very soon. Now, I said that we might have questions and answers for Kinsoffer. We have one. Andy Darvell. Question from Kinsoffer. Can you send some more cool goodies to win, please? We love your attachments and free goodies. I do actually, just in answer to that, I do actually have a couple of Kinsoffer bits still in the office here. I like to vary it up a bit. We'll do the Volvo baseball cap, the Volvo rallycross hat tomorrow, but we'll dig out some more Kinsoffer stuff. So, Julia, you don't need to send anything else over. I've got you covered. Not a problem at all. Anyway, that's going to pretty much wrap up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat. Although Julia's just said, no problem. Julia, I'll let you know if I need more, I promise. If you can't stick around, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please stick around because the Craic will begin immediately after a final word from our key show sponsor, MB Crusher. We've got lots to talk about: car park fires, collapses, people being lazy, disposing of their rubbish, and obviously our question of the day. And our question of the day, if you haven't already seen it, if today was your last ever day at work, what would you do differently? Give it some thought. Let us know in the chat. I'll be back immediately after this. And just to prove that this show has absolutely no plan or scripting, my wife has just said, does anybody have any inspiration of what she can do for dinner tonight? If anybody's got any good suggestions on what we could have for dinner tonight, my wife's ears are open. Let me throw back. Let's have a look. I tell you what, let me go right the way back to the very beginning. And I think Dan Cullen was first off the mark this morning. Dan, hope you're well. I saw on our WhatsApp group that you are possibly back in work as of Monday. I'll keep my fingers crossed for you. And speaking of the WhatsApp group, if you're not already a member and would like to be, you can join it using the link that I've just posted in the chat. There you go. Gary Muirhead. I think we're back to your questions of the day, Gary. I've been inspired for a couple of days. The inspiration has sadly worn off. So we'll be back to your questions of the day probably tomorrow, I would imagine. Oh, excuse me. Now, Chris Ford has got something to say. Good morning, Mark and the masses. The masses. Ah, yes. The Breakfast Show massive, indeed. Happy Hump Day, ladies and gentlemen, and your filthy animals alike, says Dan Cullen. Thank you very much indeed. Mick Saunders is in the house. Morning, Mick. Hope you're fit and well. There is... I love this as an expression. Good morning, says Andy Darvell. Wetter than an otter's pocket. Yeah. And then he tried again and spelled it correctly. Now, we had somebody, this very person over on YouTube, saying thank you yesterday. Guess what? They've said thank you again. I've no idea what they're thanking us for. Maybe just being here. I don't know if we're helping you through your morning. I wish I spoke Spanish because it would make a whole lot easier to understand why I was being thanked. But there you are. Of all the YouTube viewers, this is my favourite name among them. Batshit crazy. What's up? Not much up here, but thank you very much indeed for joining us. I know you pop in from time to time. Always good to see you, so thank you very much indeed for being here. Jim Turner actually received his Wacker Neusen sweatshirt yesterday, and it's been commandeered by Mrs. Turner already, who says it's very nice, which is good. Jim, if I've aided in marital relations for you, then my work here is done. Hope she likes it. Let's have a look. Lots of people saying good morning to each other. I'm going to throw back to this very, very quickly. We've had Mike Keogh of C&D Engineering Consultants on the show twice in the past 2 years, talking about the parlour state of the nation and the world car park stock. Very quick recap. The long and short of it is that after the Second World War, in order to attract people back into towns and city centres, we had a spate of construction on multi-storey car parks in the early 50s right up to the early 60s. Those car parks are still in use. They're not checked anywhere near as regularly as they should be. They are in a pretty poor state. And Mike Keogh twice now has predicted that we would have a collapse. And lo and behold, although this was caused by fire rather than deterioration, we've had a collapse last night over at Luton Airport. So if you would like to learn more about car park demolition and the need for car park demolition, then pop on over to YouTube. You can see the link in the chat there. Just go to YouTube and just search for car park demolition. There's 2 videos there. Enjoy. And there you are, Gary Muirhead saying exactly that. We were warned about the car park problem. Yeah, we were. I'm sure those that actually watched the show on the night that we did it will recall Mike Keogh saying that he is very cautious about which car parks he actually parks in. to the point where he actually avoids some. And I know some of our viewers, and I think Gary was one of them, has actually been into a multi-storey car park, seen it and left because they are in such a poor state. And obviously we are in the midst of discussions about reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete, RARC to its friends. So crumbly concrete is all the rage right now. Obviously, we're talking with RARC, we're talking about hospitals and schools, but crumbling concrete in car parks is a different type of concrete, but crumbling nonetheless. Sketchy as all hell. So be careful where you park your cars, people. Dan Carnes says, no way, just seen that. Hope no one was injured. As Andy Darvell does actually explain that, there was a couple of people treated for smoke inhalation, which obviously is always a danger, particularly when you're dealing with vehicle fires and the fumes that arise from that. But we'll get back to Andy in just a second. Morning, Glenn. Glenn Johnston's joined us as well, as has Andy Dyson from Erith Demolition, one of the finest exponents of the demolition art right here in the UK. Andy, did you see my article on Death Spray? I'd like to get your thoughts. You, of all people, I would imagine, would have enjoyed that. Yes, here is Andy Darvell, our news reporter on the scene. It was a Land Rover that caught fire. Airport police were putting it out when the fuel tank ruptured and it took over. My mates were on the fire. 6 firefighters and 1 airport worker taken to hospital for smoke inhalation. My mates are retained firefighters at Margate in Hertfordshire. That's the station I used to work from. Didn't realise you were a former fireman, or a firefighter, should I say. But thanks very much indeed for the update, and I know there's more to come from Andy in just a moment. So that was my question of the day. If today was your last ever day at work, what would you do differently? As I said, this was inspired purely by my dad's fishing hat. It's weird how your brain works sometimes. Somebody put on Facebook a little while ago, and I'm sure it's done the rounds before, I just saw it very belatedly, that there will come a time, those of you out there that are parents will probably relate to this. There will come a time in your life where you will put down your child and you will never pick them up again because they've got too big and so on down the line. And nobody ever tells you that. And there was also another one in very similar line. There will be a day when you and your childhood friends will have played together for the last time, but nobody knew that would be the last time you'd do it. And that was the thought that arose to me yesterday, with my dad. Keen fisherman, once, twice, 3 times a week for his entire life, and then when he retired, obviously it became difficult because of his COPD and his deteriorating eyesight. And there will have been a final day's fishing for my dad, and he didn't know. I'm guessing he didn't know that was his last day, unless he got in the car afterwards and thought, I can't do that anymore. If he did, he never mentioned it. In fact, I had actually discussed trying to get him out fishing while he was still sick. But yeah, so that was my question of the day. If today was your last ever day at work, what would you do differently? There's Ken Hatcher from Welsh Wales. Morning, Ken. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I know, this says a lot about Ken anyway, but I just think this is such a great answer from somebody that loves their job. If this was your last day at work, now, you could go and put a few swear words into your boss or to your fellow workers or whatever it might be, but no, Ken said, I'd give the machine a good polish up. Class act, Ken Hatcher. Class act. I love it. Gary Muirhead says, I leave work early and spend what little time I have with my family. Yeah, good one. Mick Silver says, retire the day before. Going back to the fire over at Luton Airport. 25 fire trucks, including the airport trucks, were on it. The biggest fire in the area since Buntsfield Fuel Depot went up. And that really, I don't know if you've ever seen it, there is actually CCTV. There's no sound, but there is a CCTV cameras in Buntsfield when it went up. And man alive, it's like a nuclear explosion. And my mates were on that too, says Andy. Unfortunately, I hadn't started as a firefighter at that point, so I missed that big job too. Mark Whiting says, morning. Mark. Good morning to you, sir. Hope you're fit and well. See, now on the one side of the argument, we have Ken Hatcher, who is going to treat his last day, polish the machine, and then hand the keys to somebody else. Our friend, batshit crazy, is going to grab ass for a bit and leave early. Hey, listen, Each to their own. Each to their own. Chris Ford says, question of the day. Hopefully I wouldn't know it was coming, so not a lot different. But if I did, there might be one or two bodies being unearthed later. Yeah, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? To be honest, I mean, I obviously work alone these days, aside from working with my son, so I don't really have that. And I've left largely amicably pretty much everywhere I've ever worked. I've never actually been tempted to leave in a blaze of glory. But another class act, Jim Turner says, I buy all the lads breakfast. Let me know when that's happening. I'm anyone's for a breakfast. Question of the day, Andy Darville says, I think I'd go home sad and upset. I love driving machines. It's basically one of my hobbies. I would miss the Craic and the lads massively. Yeah. I know people talk about like work-life balance and all of that stuff, and I realise it does have its place. And I hate the idea of being defined by my job. You know, I'm a husband and a father and a grandfather way before I am a journalist or a live streamer or whatever it might be. But you know, I've had days where, I mean, even when I'm away, you know, when I was in Bergamo recently, when I was in Ireland and when I was in Frankfurt, you know, waking up at sort of 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning and thinking, oh, I haven't got a show to do today. It really does leave a hole. So I totally agree with Andy Darvell on that. Dan Cullen, was that button demolition? I think we've covered that. No, it was JBV. Question, I've been wondering how it came to this and have a lunch and head home, says Dan Cullen. Mick Saunders says, got a call from Hafer coming in from a cousin. Okay. Andy Darvell says the Nox looks a great product, greater product than the other tilt rotators. Sorry, surely it's a stronger unit without the rams on the side and less to hit and damage. Now, obviously, we do have a steel wrist superfan in our midst, and I'm sure Gary will speak up for the steel wrist. And obviously, there are plenty of tilt rotators out there, but I have to say, I am very impressed by the Nox. And you know, I was largely introduced to it by the likes of Steve Williamson and Ed Butler, and obviously by Kinsoffer themselves. Every time I see it, and I tend to relate these things more to big equipment. You know, sometimes you see like a high reach machine, like the Jumbo from Despe that we featured a few months back. You look at it and you just go, oh yeah, that looks absolutely right. The Nox tilt rotator has that thing, obviously a lot smaller than a giant excavator, but you look at a Nox and you just go, Yep, that's absolutely bang on. That's how it's supposed to look. So totally agree with you, Andy. Let's have a look. That's talking about my tip. Yeah, and it just literally came with a message just saying thanks for everything you do, and there you are, £70. As I say, my wife has probably already grabbed it out the bank account because that's the way it works, but have to say, very pleased with that. That looks the bollocks. And there's an app too. That was going back to the Dynaset. It's Dynaset magnet control. It's coming. You know, the number of apps. There was a time I used to do when we had our own Demolition magazine before COVID put the kibosh on that. We used to have a Demolition magazine, and we used to feature apps for various things, selecting equipment, monitoring equipment, that kind of thing. But we used to do it about once every 6 months. You could fill pages every single issue now because apps are so prevalent in the industry. I wonder what the magnet is like at full power and what it can lift. As I say, if you have a look at some of the big magnets that they use with like those Senebogen materials handlers in steel yards and that kind of thing, they can lift a lot of steel. They really can. Dan Cullen says, seen those Bluetooth gadgets. Andy Kane had these 6 years ago on his attachments. I think they're getting more complex. I think originally they were just trackers, but I think trackers and monitors now. And I know, I'm just trying to remember the name of the system. I'm fairly sure the system was called Ramses that Rammer came up with probably 15 years ago, that was basically a remote monitor. It was an add-on, you know, a retrofit for their hydraulic breakers, just to keep an eye on them while they were working in mines in the middle of nowhere. But those gadgets have come a long way. There's Ed Butler. coincidentally, just on the, and I don't know whether it was the fact that I put Kinsoffer in the title of today's show, but when we were at Kinsoffer filming that film with our archaeologist friend and looking at the new TRO 45 from Kinsoffer, Ed Butler was there. And he got drenched, same as I did. Dan Cullen, has he had the breakers stolen, got Wi-Fi Bluetooth trackers in buckets and breakers, replaced them every 6 months as battery are that long? Let's go back to Andy Kane and his Bluetooth monitoring systems. Do love the new cat cabs and screens, says Andy Darville. You're absolutely on the money. Yeah, the latest, or certainly the next gen Caterpillar excavators, the cabs are awesome. Much better than the old ones. They have really upped their game. I used to be a Volvo member. Volvo needs to push now to get up to where cats are now. You think? I have to say, I have them pretty much on a par, particularly the bigger end. I'm just trying to remember. Was it a 950 or a 750 that I operated up in Sweden? But the cab in that, as good as anything I've ever seen. Tom Whiting says the electric Volvos are mint. They drive beautifully and are very quiet. Just a pity they only run for 4 hours before they need a charge. One of the things I think that one of their videos does address, and I do. Let me wind back. Where we are at the moment, I think we are very early stages with electric. I realise we've had them for 4 or 5 years, but we're still very first generation. You look at the hybrid machines of like Komatsu. Komatsu are now on their 3rd generation of hybrid machines, so they've been around for a decade or whatever, and they've refined and refined and refined. Electric will be exactly the same. But I have sat down with Volvo people and I've sat down with JCB people and looked at the true telematics of machine operation. And honestly, 4 hours doesn't sound much. But when you take out all of the idling time, I mean, if you think if you're loading a truck, for example, you load a truck buggers off, and you're sat there twiddling your thumbs until it comes back again, and then you start the whole process again. You take out the idling time of 4 hours, actually isn't far off. And bearing in mind, if you've worked for 4 hours, your battery is not completely empty, so it might only take half an hour, 40 minutes to get it back up to pretty much full charge. So you can work right the way through to the end of the day and then put it on a proper charge. So when you come back the following day, you've got a full charge to work with. It's not as clear cut as 4 hours, the end. It really isn't. Go and have a look at the Volvo Construction Equipment website, the YouTube channel. Lots and lots of good stuff over there. How many sites have a 20 tonner outside of a quarry have a 3 pH electric available? Good question. I was thinking this with the video that we played. I can't remember if it was yesterday or on Monday from JCB, talking about the fact that they've built 3 different types. I think it's 3 different types of machines to run on hydrogen, and now we need the hydrogen network. Bearing in mind the driving force behind all of this, we are basically in a roundabout way, we are trying to save the planet. So getting additional power to places where it's needed, be it electrical power or hydrogen pipelines or whatever it might be, whatever it is, it needs to be done. And it's, when it comes to saving the planet, these are but minor obstacles. We've seen independent manufacturers like JCB, like Volvo, like Komatsu. They've gone back to the drawing board and said, okay, for the last 100+ years, we've been building machines to run on diesel. That is no longer viable, or it won't be viable for very much longer. Therefore, we need to change. Now we need national governments and local authorities to do exactly the same thing. And it's perfectly doable. And ultimately, the goal is to save the planet. It needs to be done. Let's have a look. I've not operated a Volvo above 14 tons at the moment, as no one I work for has any. Mostly Doosan, Hitachi, Cat, Lugong, and JCBs. Get yourself in a Volvo. You'll thank me, honestly. Ed Butler can't stay long. He's on a Cat and Jenny training course today. Not a problem. Wonder why I can't come up with a battery to last or a hybrid to charge it. I will go back to, I will refer the gentleman to my previous answer. Bearing in mind, we're talking first generation. Think back to your non-Nokia. Nokia were a law unto themselves. You think back to your first, particularly smartphone. I had a Nokia N95. I had a 3310 as well, like the rest of the world. 3310, I could probably switch it on now and it would still have battery in it. That's a different set of circumstances. But I had a Nokia N95. I actually filmed my first ever YouTube video on a Nokia N95. And if you filmed or played video on that device, you would get, at best, half a day of charge out of it. Half a day. And now look at this. That's a 12 Pro Max iPhone. It's 2 years old, and the battery will generally last, so long as I'm being sensible with it, the battery will generally last a day and a half. That's how far they've come. We will have exactly the same. We'll have exactly the same experience with batteries on electric machines. We're on first generation. They don't last that long, 4 hours, 5 hours. Give it to the second generation or the third generation. Be a whole different ball game. Great video, says Dan Cullen. I think that was about the Volvo experience over at Kentucky. And going back to all things electric, Ed says, myself and Steve got a shot on an electric Hitachi at Balmer. Great experience. They really are. They really are. And I think part of it is novelty. Like the first time I ever drove a Tesla, it was like, man, this is fast, and man, this is quiet. But once you actually get into it, you realise that actually an electric machine is that little bit quicker. It's that little bit more responsive, and you really start to feel, hey, this is pretty cool. If you ever get a chance, get along to one of these open days and have a play. Doesn't matter whose machine it is, go have a play. Dan Cullen, my old High Rich was a Volvo 480, bloody lovely machine. Spent a few days on one of our Volvo 750s loading ADTs. Love the power of the big machines and very smooth. Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I've got a Volvo hat sat beside me, but Volvo are not paying me to say it. Volvo, some of the best equipment. I mean, certainly the big excavator, some of the best I've ever operated. Badly. I'm a terrible operator. I'm no judge of quality, but they are brilliant, honestly. Peter McKenna has arrived, but he's largely contagious, so I'm glad he's way up in Preston or thereabouts. He's got the start of a chest infection. Looks like he's going to have to cancel his own operation this time, which will make a nice change from the hospital cancelling for you. Get well soon, my friend. No way. Get well soon, pal. Yeah, get well soon indeed. It's not good, Peter. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, sorry to hear that as well. Get yourself well, would you please? And Dan Cullen, yes, her name is that. I can't say it because I've got one sat beside me and she'll start talking, but that is actually her name. I went to Volvo. I want the Volvo hat the woman has on. Bloody lovely hat. Hey, Dan. Volvo, if you're watching, if you'd like to send one over to me and I'll forward it to Andy Darvell, or send it to Andy direct, either way. Kinsoffer crept in when nobody was looking and says, hi, Mark and all. And, of course, my Ed. That's Ed, E-D, not head. Julia wouldn't say hello to her head, obviously. Yeah, Ed Butler, obviously, Kinsoffer and Ed and Steve. They are lobsters. If you've watched Friends, you'll know exactly what I mean. If you haven't, you'll probably think I've been drinking this morning. You sort of get used to it when your health's bad. Shot that you take for granted when you're healthy. A friend of mine has what's it called? Fibromyalgia, which is like chronic pain. You're in pain in your basically everywhere all the time. And he was saying this on Twitter the other day about the fact that when it kicks in, you actually forget what it's like to feel good. And I've had that. When I've had, I'm not sure I've ever actually had flu, but when I've had a really bad cold or something like that, you're 3 or 4 days in, you think, I can't actually remember what it feels like to not ache and not be coughing and spluttering and sniffling. So, Peter, do as you're told. Get well soon, my friend, would you? I'm all for electric as long as I don't have to pay for it, says Chris Ford. How would you go on when and if you were on hire? A normal trick of your off hire tonight at 3:30 in the afternoon. Are you going to get access to a charger, or if not, will you have the charge to load it? Just saying. Again, all of these things need to be addressed. I do think one of the things that I'm looking forward to seeing is going to be the paradigm shift within the industry. We've spent years. You run the machine, you check the fuel level, diesel level, and then you top it up and carry on. when we switch to electric and switch to hydrogen, we are going to have to do things differently. You know, we're going to place more onus, I think, on the operators to make sure that the machine is charged, not to forget to charge it overnight, because if you forget to refuel your machine overnight or at the end of a working day, not a big deal. You just start 10 minutes later the following day because you've refueled it. Not the case with electric. So I do think there's going to be a real paradigm shift. I also think things like we saw with the Dynaset app, obviously we've seen the Emma app from Volvo. I think there's going to be more of that kind of thing. I think remote monitoring of machines to make sure, even things like I've just said, operator goes home, parks up the machine, hasn't put it on charge, that needs to trigger an alert to somebody, be it the operator himself or maybe the site supervisor, to make a call to say, you haven't put the machine on charge, get your tail back there and make it happen. All of those things are perfectly doable. All of that exists at the moment. We just need the adoption right now. Yes, we're talking about the Alexa, the lady on the Volvo video. Going to skip over that for now. And there is our friend Julia at Kinsoffer. Nice truck, says Dan Cullen. That was the Ward Demolition one. Incidentally, just speaking about Ward Demolition, for the third consecutive year, I only heard of this week, I have been asked to be one of the judges yet again for the New Zealand Demolition and Asbestos Association Awards. I should be receiving all of the entries that I'm expected to judge in about 2 weeks' time. So I should be taking a day out. Won't be taking a day off, I'll still do the show, but taking a day out to go through all of the entries. And I have to say, one that I always look forward to is Ward Demolition. Not only do they have some very nice trucks, they do some absolutely astonishing work as well. On a par with pretty much anyone here in the UK. If you fancy finding out exactly what it is they do, they've got a very good YouTube channel, Ward Demolition. Go and take a look. Very good indeed. The trucks in Oz, New Zealand and America are a work of art. They look bloody awesome. Wish we could have more trucks like that over here. Yeah, we don't, do we? And I know somebody makes the point. There it is, Chris Ford. I'd like to see that outfit get to site in some of the towns and cities we deliver to. All a good point. But when you think about the amount that we invest in some of our equipment, particularly sort of higher reach machines and that kind of thing, and then it turns up in a low loader that looks like it's just been dragged out of a scrap heap. I realise that's not always the case, but they really do go the whole hog, don't they? We are limited because of the length restrictions, because of our roads. There are a few here in the UK. My mate has 5, says Peter McKenna. Photographs would be good. Is that lorry Euro 6? On the basis it's in Australia, probably not. Dan Cullen says, good morning to the Kinsoffer crew. Let's have a look. I'm not going to dig. Mick Sun says, I'm back. Some very disconcerting news. Not for this show. Whatever it is, Mick, I hope you're okay. If you want to chat, you know where to find me. I'll be done here in the next 10 minutes or so. Let's have a look. Question for Kinsoffer: can you send some more cool goodies in to win, please? As I say, we've got a few more bits and pieces to give away, so watch this space. Now, I've tried to talk Julia out of sending any more Kinsoffer stuff over, but I'm going to make an exception. Julia, if you can send schnitzel or currywurst or both, please. Love schnitzel. If you think the canal path was bad, you better not look in the passenger footwell of my car. Yeah, my car looks like that if I've been travelling a bit as well. Andy Darvell says, hands off, Dan. I asked first. Not good, pal. Everyone there are in my thoughts and prayers. Always nice. For dinner, good Irish stew. I do like an Irish stew, actually. So this is the suggestions for my dinner tonight. Sweet and sour chicken with rice. I wouldn't mind that either. Ruth, if you're paying attention. I'm probably still going through, but I would probably err towards this one. Good dinner has to be either corned beef hash or Lancashire hot pot. Not the greatest fan of Lancashire hot pot, rather, but I'm a huge fan of corned beef hash. Ruth, Call me Hash, please. Well, I think Andrew and Dan should put themselves on the side. Surely someone that's ill gets freebies and goodies to perk them up while they're ill. It's a good point. I do know, and I have to say, I have to say hats off, and it's not a pun. I do say hats off. The number of times where we've had people that have won prizes in our giveaways, and they've either passed them on, or the next time we have a prize of a similar type, they take a step back and say, "No, I'm out this time. Let somebody else win." You lot really are fab. Love you all. Let's have a look. It says one half of the car park was fully engulfed in flames. Yeah, there is some video over on Sky News if you go and have a look at that, and it does look like an absolute inferno. Now obviously I know I've been erring towards all things electric this morning, and EV batteries and EV chargers and that kind of thing, but imagine whatever it was. I think it was something like 1,200 cars involved, potentially 1,200 cars, all of which will have fuel and oil and stuff on board. So yes, I would imagine the fire was pretty damned intense. Talking of food, the hot cross bun I've just eaten didn't taste quite right, so if I miss the show tomorrow, you'll know why. Hot cross buns in October? Is that a thing? Are they not like an Easter thing? Which might explain why it didn't taste quite right. We have a LinkedIn user, which may or may not be Gary Major. Good morning to you, whoever you are. Let's have a look. Has the Luton fire now killed the EV market in the UK? I very much doubt it. Let's have a look. Question of the day, which is, what would you do differently? I'd start reading books. I do love me a book. Let's have a look. Graham Footy Williams is here. Sorry I'm late. I just got back from the Dole office. Did that once when I was about 17, I think. I'd gone from college to a youth opportunity scheme, and I was between that and actually started work. And I went to the Dole office once, and I swore blind I would never do it again. Let's have a look. I wonder how many vehicles are destroyed with people's belongings in. Yeah, good question. I'd like to think, if it's an airport car park, and I don't know whether this is a long stay or a drop-off airport or whatever it might be, but certainly if it's a long stay car park, you'd like to think that most people's possessions probably went with them, but it's going to be costly either way. That's why my fiance's family, Luton, heard about this morning, actually last night when it happened. Yes, it did happen overnight. Our LinkedIn user says, concrete repair on car parks versus demolition. I'd opt for demolition and regeneration all day long. And I do think that's one of the questions that we didn't really cover with Mike Keogh. My nearest retail centre, for want of a better term, is Epsom Town Centre, which is about a mile that way there. And back in the day, we had there was a big Debenhams there was a Next, and there was all the usual suspects, the type of shops that will draw people in from miles around. We have got at least a dozen empty shops, both on the high street and in the Ashley Centre, which is our shopping centre, and there's a multi-storey attached to that. As the nature of high streets change and the way that we actually go about shopping, I mean, there is no reason for me to ever set foot in Epsom ever again. Occasionally calling for a cup of coffee or something like that, but there's no actual reason for me to go there for a retail experience. There's not a single shop there that I can't find elsewhere. So going back to the point that our friend, the LinkedIn user, is saying there, if we were to actually demolish those car parks, would we really need to replace them, given the way that our shopping experiences are changing? Possibly not. And maybe that's why, maybe the retailers and maybe the local authorities are hoping against hope that we'll see a resurgence in actual physical shopping. Going back, I know somebody said, will that Luton fire be the death knell for EVs in the UK? No, but I do wonder if COVID was the last nail in the coffin of traditional high street shopping. Even my parents, who were almost 80, got into such a habit of online shopping that once the COVID crisis had blown over, they stuck with it and they didn't go back. And I think there's going to be a whole heap of people that did exactly the same. If the final car park is anything like the one in Derby 5 years later, they'll still be wondering what to do with it. Yeah, absolutely right. Although I would imagine high traffic area like Luton, you'd have to, or Luton Airport certainly, you'd have to think they'll need to do something fairly lively. See, that spoken like a true Bavarian. Obviously, Julia, going back to our question of the day, what would you do differently if this was your last ever day at work? I'd probably buy some cases of beer and just enjoy some bottles with the company and my colleagues for the last time. Well, obviously, I'll be long retired by then. But if you do that, Julia, let me know a day or two in advance, and I'll make an exception. I'll come and drink beer with you. I see that blonde one quit TV yesterday. That is, what's her name? Holly Willoughby. Which, and I realised she was embroiled in the whole Philip Schofield thing and everything else. It seems a weird thing. Obviously, there was this plot to kidnap, rape, and then kill her by a lunatic. But the guy's been caught. So why quit now? The guy's no longer an issue. It seemed weird. Listen, I fully understand. I wouldn't want my family at risk either, but yeah, weird. Ed Butler says, I do like that German beer. I think 3/4 of the world would agree with you, actually. Just watch Storm on Channel 5 instead. She's hotter than the skinny mini Holly. Storm on Channel 5? Not aware of this. I'm impressed by Knox and love to get a shot on one someday. Well, Dan, I realise you're currently between jobs, hopefully not for much longer, but don't forget. It's not exactly on your doorstep, but don't forget, Auger Talk, 2 open days. You can go and have a play on a Knox if you should so desire on Tuesday the 24th and Friday the 27th of October. And while you're there, I don't know if Ed's going, I don't know if Steve's going, not a clue, but I'll tell you what, Joe Torrington will be there, and Joe is a smasher. Go and see Joe. Go and have a play with a Knox. Tell her I sent you. Thanks. No cylinders definitely has its advantages. Absolutely right. You kept that quite a bit. That's my other half who's just heard about the 70 quid I got yesterday. That's that gone then. Got to go. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you very much indeed, Julia, and thanks for all your support over the past couple of years. I'll speak to you very soon. Have a great day. I wish my phone battery would last as long as yours. By the time I finish listening to your show, I'll be down to 60% or less. The phone isn't very old. Yeah, unfortunately, playing video is quite demanding on a battery, and I don't tend to do that. I tend to push video out rather than suck it in, as it were. You all got a Volvo hat. It's my works bag, obviously. That's from our friend Graham Williams. Volvo, if watching, I'll have one of your hats too, or 2, one for work, one for leisure. Do I have well, this one is up for grabs. This one will be up for grabs tomorrow. If I don't remember, please somebody remind me, and I will make that happen. Makes you wonder why, after the Liverpool car park fire, why aren't existing car parks being fitted with foam suppression equipment? For the self-same reason that they're not being checked on a regular basis. As I say, it's go have a look. Go listen to what our friend Mike Keogh says. Ashley, it's a Volvo Operators Club hat. Okay. That's another point. Who's going to be paying the price of the electricity bill for this compared to fuel? My other half just reminded me she's here. She's probably stood outside the door with her hand held out, waiting for 7 £10 notes. Seen on new devastating impact of the storm in Scotland. Has had on a few farmers there. Some work going down the river. Unbelievable. The feeding bales for the animals. Apologies, Mark. I had a call from Relations in Israel. Not a good situation there. Okay, all becomes clear. Yeah, and I've just gone back. I've just rewound it in my head. I know you said you had a call coming in from Haifa. The dots just joined up. I hope I hope all is well, Mick. Absolutely bloody abysmal situation over there, and I don't give a monkey's what side you're on. There's innocent people dying. Get rid of that one. Just poisoning a crow with the other half of the hot cross bun. It was that bad, was it? Wow. Farmers locally to me have had it bad too. Too wet to sow crops, yet down southeast Anglia it's been too dry. Farmers have had a terrible year. Yeah, imagine your livelihood being at the disposal of the British weather. Like walking a bloody tightrope, I would imagine. Here is our friend Wolf Welder 69, all the way from the US of A. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Haven't seen you here for a while, but you're always welcome, as you know. It's a long stay car park. It's only 3 years old. Not good at all. That's the one over at Luton Airport. Thank you for the update, Andy. Another car park in Luton Town Centre was only a few years old and suffered subsidence. It was left abandoned for years, says Andy. High streets are knackered now, no good shops left. Amazon and the like ruined it, but it's just too bloody easy to shop on there. That's the problem. And is it a problem? Is it a problem? We have a local butcher and stuff, although not great. But I did grow up where you'd go to a high street and you'd go to a greengrocer and you'd go to a baker and you'd go to a butcher and a fishmonger and stuff. Supermarkets came along and moved all of that out of town and put it under one roof, and nobody kicked up much of a fuss. And despite the fact that the quality of their meat, their fish, their fruit and their veg is nowhere near as good as it used to be with those local shops, we all accepted convenience. We've done exactly the same thing again. And I know my wife was deeply upset when Woolworths packed up, but she hadn't been in one for about 2 years. She was deeply upset when our Wilco's went pop as well. She hadn't been in one of those for about 2 years either. We have nobody to blame but ourselves. And say what you like about Amazon. I needed a new belt the other day. I ordered it on Saturday afternoon. It arrived Sunday morning. I don't need it for another week, but it arrived. I didn't have to go park. I didn't have to go and pay for parking in a crumbling car park. I didn't have to give up my time. I just went online, pressed the button. Bob's your uncle. Wolf Welder over in the States says, I haven't been able to watch for a long time because my work schedule changed. Wasn't getting up early in the morning as I used to. I fully understand. No apologies necessary, but it's great to have you back. Always nice to see our friends from the US of A over on the show. Storm Huntley. Mark, she's... Storm Huntley. That's a name to conjure with. She's on Jeremy Vine on Channel 5. I've been on Jeremy Vine, not on Channel 5. I was on the radio with him twice, actually. Job in Basingstoke for Redhead Demo is Dan Cullen. Please, do me a favour. Give my regards to Ross and the rest of the Redhead team. Fantastic little firm. They really are. Zara, Ross, all of the team down there. And as Chris Ford has just said, Ross is a sound chap. He absolutely is. I know it's a weird thing to have to say, but these are the circles in which we move. He really is. It shouldn't be remarkable, but it is. Ross Redhead, salt of the earth. Morning, Ross, if you're out there. Hope you're having a good day. See you guys. Must go and stay safe out there, guys. Get well soon, Peter and Mick. Hope everything is okay. Thank you very much indeed for that, Dan. Great news, Dan, says Andy Darvell. Bye, Peter, says Chris Ford. Andy, people ruined the high streets. Pretty much as I said. Catch you later on, one and all. Sorry, my post not really appropriate for the show. Not a problem at all. All friends together here, mate. Not a problem at all. I love saying bye to Dan. I think most people love. I'm sorry, Dan. Just kidding. Totally understand. Pout says Peter McKenna. I will do, Mark. Good. Please pass on my best regards to our friend Ross Redhead. People, that's nearly an hour and a half. What on earth are you doing with your lives being here for an hour and a half? Surely you have better things to do. Go forth. Go forth. Have a good day. Peter McKenna, you seem to be sending me. I can only assume that they are icons or something, because they're all coming through blank. Andy Darvell says, see you guys later. Stay safe. You stay safe as well, Andy. Hopefully see you tomorrow. Hopefully see you all tomorrow. Peter McKenna says, I'm ill. I have nothing better to do. Well, unfortunately, my contribution to keeping you entertained is now over and done with. I'll see you tomorrow. Get yourself well, Peter. Get that op booked in. I'll see you all tomorrow. Everybody, it's been a scream as always. Really appreciated your company, particularly Julia over at Kids Offer. Always nice for the manufacturers to tune in as well. So everybody, see you tomorrow if you're around. And don't forget, this time next week, 7 p.m, we will be hosting our electric earth moving equipment special. Book it in your diary. Love to have you along for the ride. Until then, everybody, have a great day. All the best.